Buckle up, because this is the Flyover Conservative Show.
Baylor Hospital's Dr. Peter Hotez decides to be a victim, and Twitter explodes involving Mark Cuban, Joe Rogan, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Why is silver significantly underpriced, and what does the future hold? Dr. Kirk Elliott joins us tonight for an economic update.
All of this and more on the Flyover Conservative Show.
Yes. Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
All right, Flyover family, buckle up because you're about to learn something. I can promise you. You know, we have just incredible guests.
Yes, we do. I'm so excited about this.
But just some wells are just deeper than others, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. He's host of a radio show called The Reckoning on TNT Radio, Mr. Timothy Shea.
Yay!
Hey guys, how are you? Great to see you.
We've been so much looking forward to this. So David was on your show a couple of weeks ago, and I was listening to that conversation. I was like, we have got to get Timothy on our show.
It was so much fun.
I had a blast.
Laughed.
Yeah.
And we got about 3 hours of things we want to cover with you in the next few minutes. And so I just want to get in your head and just pull all this
we'll keep it tight.
This data and intel thing going out. But for those that are not familiar with your work and have not heard you speak at live events and these things, fill people a little bit of this process of what got you to where you are, you know, politically in your platform.
Well, it goes back to 1968. My first political campaign was leafleting with my dad when I was 6 years old. And our cousins ran the Democratic Party in Syracuse, New York. And our next door neighbors, my grandfather built a little cottage out on one of the Finger Lakes. And when I say he built a cottage, I mean with the hammer and nail himself. Yeah. And our next door neighbors were the Walshes that ran the Republican Party. So I got to see both parties from behind the curtain from a very early age. And the deal was, if I kept my mouth shut, I could sit at the table and hear the grown-ups talk. So I really got an apprenticeship in politics at a very early age. But then I went off down toward a medical track, and I was waitlisted at Georgetown and New York Med. And it was almost as though, you know, things don't make sense. We don't see the Holy Spirit working in our lives until sometimes decades later, right? I was devastated at the time because that had been my sole focus since sixth grade, was getting into medical school. And I was waitlisted, never got in. Wow. So it was almost, I realize now, I was being saved from it because then I started banging on the door of biotech companies. And again, I'd make the final round of interviews, wouldn't get the job. And I realized now, I think I was being protected from being in the middle of everything that we've seen the last 3 years. I was in a doctoral program and I left because I saw what science was becoming, which was just grifting for grant money. And I didn't want any part of that. I wanted to teach, and that's not what being a scientist is about anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I started in 2014 doing Radio Red Nation Rising, and then I started doing my own show, Patriot Uprising. I co-founded MAGA Institute with Brooke McGowan to certify candidates so people know who they can trust. Mm-hmm. Not everybody with an R after their name is trustworthy, as we've come to find out.
Man, no kidding.
And I, suffered all the slings and arrows of social media ostracization. Been banned more times than I can even count, practically. No, I'm keeping count. And
well, you would run out of toes and fingers just for Facebook alone.
Well, I have. Apparently, Facebook doesn't give you. Yeah, apparently Facebook doesn't give you a 30-second 30-day ban. Right? They just nuke you completely.
You're God.
14 years out of here, kid. And I had the audacity to point out that there are actual Nazis that we're supporting in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Man, no, for sure. And then Twitter, what are you on, your fourth Twitter channel or something?
Fourth Twitter account, yep. At TimboTim62 is nuked. Elon, I've been begging you, pal. at MAGA_Institute is nuked. And a backup I had was nuked as well. So at The Reckoning TNT is my fourth account. Man. That's why there's
you are what I consider like
followers on it.
Right,
fact-based news reporting. Keep your receipts. What I would consider a mainstream talking about the headlines of the day. Not mainstream as in like what's become, slang for like, deep state agenda-based media, but journalist-based media where you're actually documenting facts. I want to ask you a question because we got into an interesting subject when I was on your show about the Democratic Party and its shift over years, as well as the Republican Party and its shift over the years, but really magnified by the Democratic Party looking at its own reflection in the face of Kennedy and his current campaign and the things that he stands for. He was on Joe Rogan this weekend. There's a lot of things we can talk about with him. But as a child growing up and seeing this movement, maybe what's your perspective on its shift from what it meant to be a Democrat in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today? How has that moved?
Well, people constantly refer to the fact that JFK, based on his policies, would be a Republican today. And that's not a reflection on the Democratic Party as much as it is a reflection on the Republican Party.
Good point.
Right? The Republican Party has moved significantly far to the left. And we're a center-right nation, always have been, always will be. But they don't want you to know that, which is why they co-opted the media. They indoctrinate the next generation. William F. Buckley wrote God and Man at Yale in 1950. That's 73 years ago. 73 years ago, he was calling out the fact that communists were running the history and social sciences at Yale College.
Yeah.
So this isn't anything new. This has been the long march through the institutions, and they move the ratchet forward, right? It's always forward until they get pushed back, and then they stop, but they never go backward. And
Good point.
It started in the 1960s with taking God and prayer out of our public schools, and then it's just accelerated ever since, to the point now where you're a racist, a bigot, a homophobe if you deny the fact that there are boys and girls.
That's exactly right.
And that has come a long ways. I think we even got to a point where, I don't know, we've said where we landed on it, but it's a point for people to consider that if there was no Trump on the next ticket, that Kennedy might be a good option if you believe in the Constitution and a lot of values in the country. Like, that is actually a argument.
Other than his abortion stance, I mean, what else?
I could live with the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. presidency. My concern would be the administration he would have, the people he would bring in. Because remember, he is the black sheep in the Kennedy family, right? He's been ostracized from his own family because of his stance on jabs and everything else. And just so people know, I was out in April 15th, I was on Mike Moore's True Pundit podcast warning that everything we were hearing about the COVID narrative was BS. From the R naught value. Remember the R naught value? The R naught value, the R naught value. Well, the R naught value is a measure of how infectious a disease is. How many people get sick out of how many people got exposed. Well, there was no test. So we could know by symptoms how many people got sick. There was no way to know the denominator of that equation. There was no way to know how many people had been exposed. So all those R naught values were BS. And yet, every single night, they were pumping it hard. And then the masquerade and all the BS that we saw. And then in June, I came out, based on my understanding of molecular biology. I got A's in school. I was warning about it. Not the specifics, not that it was going to cause myocarditis, but saying these are all the potential problems. And the biggest problem, I said at that time, was that it could form plasmids. Plasmids are little circular pieces of DNA that exist in the cytoplasm of our cells. And we kind of understand how they work, but we don't really fully understand it. I said the danger is that these things are going to form plasmids or integrate into plasmids, and they're going to have systemic effects that we have no idea of. Remember, in the 1950s, DES, diethylstilbestrol, was a miracle drug because it prevented miscarriages. Yeah, but it also led to second-generation ovarian cancers. Okay, thalidomide was a great drug until all of a sudden we started having finger babies. So moving at the speed of science was the stupidest thing I heard during the entire scamdemic.
Right.
Because science, when done properly, is supposed to be done very slowly, gradually, incrementally, peer-reviewed. And this whole idea that you can't debate science, they're anti-science. Don't fight the science. There's no such thing as the science.
Well, Fauci is science, and if you
Yeah.
Well, he
question
is
him,
science,
you're questioning science. But I think Kennedy would, and I think Fauci would be in a lot of trouble under a Kennedy administration.
I'm really happy that Robert is running because I think he's the only Democrat in America that can pull that party back from the abyss. And let's face it, we need a Democratic Party, and we
Yes.
need a robust Democratic Party.
Definitely.
Nobody wants to live in a world where Republicans are running everything, right?
Yep.
Or
That's exactly
the
right.
leftists that have come to define an entire party, and the entire Democratic Party, while many of them are silent and allow this, the far fringe, the AOC edge of it, this agenda of running us off a leftist cliff is not the entire Democratic Party. And I think he sort of is like, oh, I forgot these are some of the things we kind of stand for. We should be free speech. Liberal principles should be a part of the Democratic Party, and they've let that go and have been hijacked. I think he sort of is a stake in the ground to keep him from sliding down the hill quite so fast.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think here's the other reason I'm happy, and I would love for him to be the nominee because I fully expect Donald Trump to be the Republican nominee.
Yes.
It will give the world an opportunity to see the presidential Donald Trump that we all know and love. Because if he's debating Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he has a tremendous amount of respect for him. John Jr. was one of his good friends in New York. It would be an old-fashioned debate. It would be cordial. It would be presidential. It will, because Trump is not a bully. Trump never hits first. Show me one instance where Donald Trump ever hit first.
Great point.
Good point.
Carlton scrolled my Twitter feed, and thank you for that, Carlton. You can see my banner is Mean Tweets 24. That's something I made in 2020 because I don't care about the mean tweets. Okay, I want the mean tweets.
That's a great
I want
banner.
the mean tweets. We love the mean tweets. Why? Because the mean tweets are pushing back against people that are pushing us.
Man, that is so good. So what are your thoughts on Robert being on Joe Rogan's podcast? Did you hear that?
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I really admire the man. I truly do. And I'll give you what I'd really like. My fantasy scenario
Let's hear it.
is Donald Trump being president and asking Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be his attorney general. That'll do two things. Number one, Bobby will go into Department of Justice the same way his father did, and he will clean house. And Trump can't be charged with being a political partisan because Kennedy's a Democrat.
Right.
You know, Kennedy will follow the law. He's not going to be a partisan. So all the criminals, what's our big frustration, Ben? That the criminals are prospering and the people that are opposing the criminals are the ones being prosecuted, persecuted, incarcerated.
The law is flippantly paid. You got Letitia James campaigns. Her campaign slogan, her banner is "I will prosecute." She's investigating people looking for crimes, not trying to solve crimes and punish people.
Are there any downsides to that? Like, can you see any downsides to Robert being AG?
I really can't because I trust that he's going to follow the law.
Which is really all we want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all we want. And let the chips fall where they may. If some Republicans go down too, great.
That's a great point.
That really is.
Let's talk a little bit about, we bring up Joe Rogan, the potential debate that he was suggesting with what's becoming quite famous doctor from Texas.
Peter Hotez, next to Anthony Fauci, they need to be cellmates, okay? And I'm not kidding about that. They actually literally belong in prison because these are two of the most corrupt men in America, much less in medicine. And now Hotez is playing the victim. It's like, well, he went after Rogan's character and he went after Kennedy's character first. And again, they punch back and the left cries victimhood.
Explain, in case our listeners don't know who Dr. Hotez is. He's a professor at Baylor, but explain some more about him. What's the situation with him?
Yeah, he's a professor at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. He's also head of tropical diseases and children's vaccines at Texas Children's Hospital. He is a bad character. And he started out as a scientist because he was urging caution. Look, the fact with vaccines are in the 1980s, there were 10 childhood vaccines. And the childhood incident rate of autism was 1 in 10,000. There are now 73 childhood
It's ridiculous.
vaccines. And the autism rate is 1 in 36, and it's projected to be 1 in 2 by 2035.
Man,
think about that.
That is
yeah,
staggering.
it's scary.
And you see that trend.
Yep.
And Hotez's daughter has autism, and yet he comes out with the book saying, "I had nothing to do with vaccines." And yet he cites precisely 0 scientific studies in support of that proposition. It's a propaganda book. It's not a science book.
Wow.
And this man is expert at playing the victim, and the arrogance of the little twerp is unbelievable. But he was not a skeptic, but he was urging caution. He was urging that we go carefully, until all of a sudden he got millions of dollars from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then he went on everywhere saying it's mandatory to get vaccinated. There's a great clip that I retweeted showing the iterations, the evolution throughout the scamdemic. You need the 2, you need the 3rd, you need the 4th. Really, you got to have the bivalent, which is the 5th. And he's completely bought and paid for. He belongs in prison.
That is crazy. So he's been on Joe Rogan, but also Robert Kennedy's been on Joe Rogan. And now Joe Rogan suggests, why don't you just have a debate between these two? Because he was calling Robert Kennedy Jr. a anti-vaxxer. Is that right?
That's right. Anti-science, anti-vaxxer. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then what happens? Peter Hotez comes out as trying to play the victim card.
Well, Joe offered $100,000 to Hotez's favorite charity. And then he gets pushed back. Yeah, Joe, that's how much you drop on a weekend with your hunting buddies.
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
So then Steve Kirsch jumps in and offers money. It's now up to $1.52 million to Peter Hotez's favorite charity. And he's running like crazy.
He clearly has a price. They need to ask Gates how much does Peter cost, and Bill Gates will give you the number, and then you find out what his price is, and is basically his honorarium to own his soul, and then put him on the show.
But now
here's the
everybody's
problem.
jumping in.
Here's the problem. Gates will add $1 to that, right? There's
Yeah.
no way Peter Hotez will do it because he knows he doesn't have a scientific leg to stand on.
Okay, so then Patrick Bet-David jumped in, and Patrick Bet-David is now, saying, "Hey, there's multiple reasons why he should go on the show."
This has gotten kind of a bit of a scrum online here.
Oh yeah. Well, I do these MAGA minutes on TNT Radio, and the one I started. In fact, I can even read it for your audience if you want, if you give me a second. But it was look. I have found, and I'm sure you have found as well, that if you use humor, you can get people to learn a lot more than if you go at them with facts.
Yes.
Right? I went at people with facts for years until I realized that if I used my frustrated stand-up comedian shtick on them and got them laughing, I could plant seeds and they would.
That is such a great point.
Sometimes stick.
Yep, that is a really good point.
So
while you're pulling that up, Colton put up there. Mark Cuban is also weighing in, and he's taunting Joe Rogan, and that's when Patrick Bet-David came in on it as well. So
I'm glad at least there's a little bit of a debate with some of these influencers, billionaires. That there's, because there is kind of a monolith of thought in some of these places, and we could put a link to this down below in the show here. But it's kind of funny just how when you get to the actual facts of the matter and you eliminate the emotion, these leftist views and these what I call authoritarian government pushes for everybody gotta get like they just it's like paper mache in a rainstorm. Their arguments just fall apart.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Look, science isn't a body of knowledge. Science is a system of questioning, and through questioning, arriving at an approximation of the truth. And it's constantly evolving. In the 1980s, in neurobiology, I started, my main focus was neuroscience. We learned that female praying mantises decapitated the males during copulation and then ate them.
Oh, man.
And that praying mantises evolved that way because the copulating nerve bodies were in the abdomen, not the head. And so that's how the male mantis was able to keep copulating, even though he'd been decapitated.
The love songs in that species have got to be just like a whole different kind of thing.
But here's the thing. Then they found out that doesn't happen in the wild. The female was just hungry. She was hangry. So science progresses, and we get closer and closer to the truth. But you never arrive there. It's like the calculus, right?
Yeah.
It means on a date, you definitely take her to dinner first.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. Oh, 100%. So if you're not having debates in science, you're not doing science. It's as simple as that. So here's the MAGA minute. I started with a ring bell ring, right? Ding! In this corner at 5'2" with the egg salad head, the big farmer bought and paid for pudgy putative pediatrician pushing autism-inducing assault vaccines at Texas Children's Hospital around the globe. And in this corner with sparkling blue eyes and devil-may-care hair, armed to the teeth with facts, law, and rapier wit, the champion of children everywhere, representing children's defense, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Refereeing tonight's bout will be podcaster extraordinaire, the Fear Factor phenom, Wake Not Woke, Joe Rogan.
That is
right?
awesome.
Man, so the world would tune in for that.
Well, you get people laughing, and then I went off and I explained who Hotez was and why he's a criminal and why he belongs in prison.
That is
format,
so good.
Joe's done a good job with his platform, and I think he's had a very transparent sort of evolution of views. He's by no way some, right-wing conservative. They kind of get that because he's kind of, bald and he's strong and he's into fitness. Mm-hmm. It's weird how even like taking care of your body and physical fitness has sort of become some like right-wing thing now. It's odd, but he had Bernie on his show, and he's done these things. Could you imagine if he just had Joe Biden and Donald Trump together and we did the debates that way? And they go for 3 hours and let them both discuss what's going on. And Joe could referee it. No insults, no interrupting, and just let them go at it and actually share ideas of what's going on in the world. That would be a great 3-hour show. Everyone in the world would watch.
And it's funny. I met Joe back in the 90s when he was on, News Radio.
Okay.
And remember, he played the electrician, the fix-it guy on News Radio, and he'd come in with the deadpan one-liners. He was hysterical. But he was a tiny little guy. And he played a warm-up gig. He had a set at Nick's Comedy Stop down in Boston one weekend. And the Thursday night before, because he's from next door, he's from Newton Upper Falls. And he came to our little coffee shop in my town and did a set. And we went down and saw him just because the couple that owned it were friends, and they were trying to create this cafe culture type thing. So they'd have speakers in and whatnot. I was like, yeah, comedy, let's go see. I'd never really heard of Joe Rogan. And it was a real nice guy, and talked to him afterward, and he comped us tickets to the show that weekend. He is so much smarter than people even realize, right? He did some really cerebral, like Dennis Miller type comedy with us. And then the next day we saw him, and it was like morons on parade. And I went to the green room afterward and was chatting with him. I said, "You are a true artist. Last night's material would not have played tonight." He goes, "Oh, absolutely not." He goes, "You got to know the audience and give them just exactly what they want." I said, "Yeah." And that right there is the difference between somebody that's funny and a professional comedian. But he's just a really sweet, down-to-earth guy. He and it's incredible. And this was before the fitness, before the tattoos, before the MMA. It was even before Fear Factor. So the fact now that people see him and he's completely jacked and he's got the bald head and the tats, and they automatically assume he's this like right-wing biker Trump dude. And it's like, no, he's just a really, really smart guy that's interested in the world and likes having interesting conversations with smart people. I love his podcast.
Well, so do a lot of people. It's huge.
Clearly.
There's several people listening. All right, let's jump into one last little thing I want to talk to you about, because there's a pattern, and you analyze the news every single day, and you don't sit there and argue that Rubik's Cubes are red. Like, you're a guy that you understand if you rotate it, there's a lot going on here. Every day there's something new about the amount of money that the Biden crime family has received based on peddling influence over the years, and it's escalated as they've gone along. And then something with a new indictment based on attorney generals and people that have campaigned on going after Donald Trump, President Trump. we were joking before we went on today. It's like, hey, they might, one of the new things might be, hey, he tore off the tag on his mattress, and that's a 15-year federal crime, whatever. Biden's tend to be kind of a nothing burger, like as far as the media is concerned, and then President Trump gets all of the coverage of what is going wrong. What do you see happening with this? The New York Times put out an article this morning saying there's going to be
New York Post.
New York Post, right? Yeah, New York Post, clearly, based on the topic. It could be over $30 million in foreign income from foreign nationals
for Biden.
For Biden. At any moment in history prior to 5 minutes ago, this would have been the biggest story in the history of politics. Where do you see this going? How it plays out over time?
And all these indictments that keep coming up.
Because it's got these two stories going on. One's covered one way, and one's kind of covered another way. And I don't think the average American really has a clear picture of what's going on because of the media coverage.
They don't. And when they do find out, Rasmussen is showing that even Democrats are flipping the script on them, right? I think that the legacy media, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Gannett News Service, AP, are in danger of going the way of the dodo bird. And they've done it to themselves. The Bud Light phenomenon is not a flash in the pan. It is staying and it's spreading. People are done. We're done with being lied to. We're done. And nothing could paint a starker contrast and be a more damning indictment that all the main media outlets, including FNC, are nothing more than bought and paid for propaganda operations. Okay, they do the bidding of CIA, NSA. That letter by 51 former intelligence community members, including the guy that was graduated from my college a year before me, John Cipher. Outrageous that they would interfere with elections like that. And yet nothing is being done. Remember, Comey, McCabe, all those idiots at DOJ, FBI that ran Operation Crossfire Hurricane are putatively Republicans, right? They're not Republicans.
Right.
The uniparty, the swamp is the uniparty.
Right.
Right? And it's not really a swamp. It's more like Lake Baikal. It is deep, baby. Swamps are just a few feet deep. This one is miles deep.
Yep. Great point. So true.
And I do see there being a and it's happening in real time. Fox News, they're rating for them to take Tucker Carlson off air until after the elections. That's like the Kansas City Chiefs taking Patrick Mahomes and putting him on the bench until after the next Super Bowl. It makes no sense unless you're in the tank. Unless if CNN fired Chris Licht, their CEO, because they didn't like the fact they had Trump on for a debate.
Right.
If you're a news outlet and you can't have a former president, the current leader in the Republican Party, on your network, you're not a news organization. Right. You're a marketing arm for an ideology.
Look, the future of media is Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Patrick Bet-David, Flyover Conservatives, The Reckoning. We've got great shows on TNT. Yep. The Uncensored. Now, we've got a variety of viewpoints, right? We've got some pro-China people. We've got some people that are concerned about CCP like me. But it's robust, and that's what we need. We need people asking questions. We need people with different viewpoints. Look, the right wasn't correct about everything.
Correct.
Right? The left was correct about Wall Street. They were correct about Iraq, weapons of mass distraction. We need all different viewpoints arguing in the marketplace of ideas.
So good. So you can go to TNTRadio.live. When you go there, look for The Reckoning. Go to shows, look for The Reckoning. You can follow Timothy Shea there. Timothy, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. I really appreciate you guys. Can't wait to have you back on my show. God bless you.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread a light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put into the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
You know what time it is. It's time for an economic update with Dr. Kirk Elliott.
How are you doing?
Great. So excited to be with you today.
Good morning. For those of you who've never watched an economic update, we do these once a week talking about what's going on in the world. And we happen to have a 25-year relationship with a guy that has not one but two PhDs, one in economics and how inflation is impacted, how they judge it and actually come up with inflationary numbers with the central banks, and another one that he got after the fact in theology. So that might
Both
not have
so important for
that
this
might
time.
not have made sense in the past, but when you look at the world that we're in right now and the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and people dressing up as demons and doing vulgar dancing at the Grammys and like
potentially the mark of the beast on the scene,
CBDCs, and they're trying to put it under yours. Like with all of these crazy things, it's like more than ever you need someone who kind of has, it's not just flying at 5 feet above the ground. It kind of has, a little higher perspective of what's going on. And Dr. Kirk, we are so thankful for that relationship and your ability to really put these things together because it's really necessary. Now, we've known you for 25 years, but we liked you as a person, but we've never valued the doctor part stuff as much as we do now that the world's going crazy and the wheels are wobbling.
Well, here's the thing, the doctor thing aside, that gives kind of like technical analysis to numbers, right? It's like that I understand and I know what I'm doing, right? But the other part is the heart part with people, right? And you can know everything in the world and maybe you hate people and it does you no good, or maybe you can love everybody in the world and know absolutely nothing and that still does you no good, right? So hopefully what we do, and we put these strategies together to protect and preserve and to grow and thrive by listening to a client's sadly fears. I wish clients weren't, gripped with fear, but they are in today's world. And I hate to say kind of sound conspiratorial about it, but I think that's by design because there's political power that comes with fear.
Yeah,
right.
True.
So division and there's focusing on the differences rather than commonalities in lives, and just it doesn't matter if it's race based or if it's class based like finances, or if it's politically motivated from different countries. I mean, fear is engulfing people and hatred is engulfing people, and sadly, this is the world that we're living in. But once you identify that, well, you can act accordingly and take advantage of it and just be light in this dark world. And that's our goal.
Yes.
It
you
is.
do a great job of that.
You do a good job of like analyzing, okay, that is a tough thing. And then like, okay, where's the hope in that? What's the move and how do you adjust? I mean, just because it's freezing outside doesn't mean people have to freeze to death. You know, like you can get the information and make adjustments. And the thing I want to ask you about today is a little bit about you know, you focus a lot on silver. And so I've been kind of studying this a little bit because we invest in silver regularly. We kind of got a formulated plan for us individually, everyone on our team, you know, and the things that affect it, I've kind of learned some stuff recently just in conversations and some questions I had for you of if demand is going up and where does silver come from? Like it's a little different thing than like if there's an increased demand because a trend changes and people want to buy more Air Jordans. Well, then they just increase the factory and work double shifts and they make more Air Jordans or iPhones or a lot of these things. But silver, I want to talk about the process of it a little bit of where it comes from and its value right now in the marketplace and how you can kind of use that to project the future. Like why might silver be worth more in the future, which is kind of what we're all expecting.
Right. Well, even today, you know, we've got this most slow, sluggish global economy you've seen in over 40 years.
Wow.
Right. Well, even so, what's silver used for is the question. Well, there's basically 4 different things, like what this article that's on the screen. You can use it for industrial manufacturing purposes, silverware, you know, bullion, coins, and bars, like the investment grade stuff, or silverware. Pretty much all the silver in the world basically goes into those 4 categories overall. Well, the industrial and manufacturing demand is 60% of all the global demand. Okay, so things used in electronics, you know, batteries, basically in your mind think, okay, if it's electronics, there's probably silver in it and somewhere, right? In the circuit boards or whatever.
Sure.
Yep.
So think about 60% of all mining globally is used for manufacturing. This is what the slowest economy we've seen in decades. Imagine what it would be if the economy were actually robust. There would be very, very little supply. Prices go through the roof, and because the demand would be like shooting through the roof. So I had this conversation literally half an hour before we're taping this. A client of mine, actually a proposed client, had me talk to his dad and their advisor. So the advisor, of course, is, and these, whenever I have to get on a 3-way joint call with an advisor, it always heads south really fast because it turns into just an argument. They say, well, I'm right. And it's like, well, I'm actually right on this one. It's like, and then there's just a stalemate. It's just like button heads. So, but he asked me a couple of weird things. And the reason I want to bring it up is because everybody watching the show that has an advisor is probably hearing their advisor say this exact same thing.
Okay.
So they said, well, Kirk, if I would have gotten into silver 2 months ago, I would have probably been down like $3 an ounce. How do you answer for that? It's like, well, who says that I'm selling silver in 3 months, right? It's like,
right.
You in any bull market, you have 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like, look at this chart. It's not linear growth. It's not going straight up. But you go back in time, 3 years ago, silver was $11.91 an ounce. Today it's 24. I mean, the trend line is going up, right? And you have 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So then he said, well, I did a study throughout time, and he said I could do much better in the stock market over time. I was like, well, I did a study over that same time frame too, and silver is actually averaging after inflation over 9% a year. Gold is second, and stock market's third. I said, you can make numbers look like anything you want, but you look at the past, and it keeps going up and up and up. We're not in it for a day or for a week or 3 weeks. And the advisor's trying to build fear into the hearts and the minds of the client. It's like, well, you know, over the last couple of weeks, it would have been down. How would you answer for that? It's like, well, I didn't sell, but how do you answer for the stock market coming down 30% last year, right? Well, that's different. It's like, no, it's not.
Their losses don't count, and a silver step back does. But the difference is also a portfolio is made up of Blockbuster stock and Bud Light stock and Target stock and Tesla stock and AT&T stock. It's across the board. So how heavy is it in one thing or another? The Blockbuster can go to zero. And
with nothing tangible.
And there's nothing to show for it. Where, like I have 10 ounces of silver here. This is never going to go to zero. Gas is never going to go to zero. Oil is never going to go to zero. There's certain things like as long as I can touch it, it's a real thing. There's going to be a need for it.
There's always going to be need for it. There's always that inherent value, which Warren Buffett, biggest stock guy of all time, right? He would call that like book value. In a company, it's their plant, people, equipment, the things that they own. That's the inherent value of a company. And then people are willing to pay more price per share than the book value of a company because they're expecting it to grow and people want their stuff, right? So here's where I had to go over with this glance. Like everything that we invest in is going to be grow or shrink because of policies coming out of DC. It's like, I'm not against stock. You think that I'm against stocks. I'm not against stocks. Because in the Trump years and during the Reagan years, when you had lowering taxes, lowering interest rates, and job creation, that's when stocks boomed because it's a function of spending. Said right now we don't have that. Can you actually say that we have a robust economy? And he said, well, no. I said, so fundamentally, all I'm saying is you look at the fundamentals of the day because politics will define your economics, right? It's like, show me how rising interest rates, anytime in history, show me how when a rising interest rate, rising inflationary environment where people's wages were coming down, that the stock market did well. I said, well, if you look at the inflation numbers from the last month, they're winning this battle. It's like, no, they're not. It's like, now you just hit my hot button because this is what I did my first dissertation on, right? It's like, okay. So they manipulate the numbers. They fudge the numbers for political reasons. But so then he came back with another thing. He said, well, you like silver. So, for the last 23 years, it's like, wait, you think I've been in silver for 23 years? I haven't. I've been in silver since 2020. From 2011 to 2020, we were in gold. From 2007 to 2011, we were in silver. From 2002 to 2007, we were in gold. Right? Because there's a ratio. There's a time where you can maximize that growth because this is our goal. Minimize risk, maximize return. Sometimes that means you're in gold. Sometimes that means you're in silver. Sometimes that might mean you're in stocks or bonds or mutual funds or real estate, right? So as you go through, and this is where I realized after this phone call this morning, everybody who's watching this show, their advisors are pigeonholing your decision that when you call them up and say, hey, I want to do some gold or silver, they're thinking, oh, you're going to do that for the rest of time. It's like, no, you're not. It's a tool to protect and preserve for right now. And right now, when you put together the political and the economic puzzle pieces that make up why something goes up or down, I can't see anything better than silver right now. But it's not that I'm against the other asset classes. I just don't see them for basically they're risky. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds are risky when people's wages are coming down and taxes are going up and inflation's going up and the cost of borrowing is going up. See, here's the thing. Last week, they raised they didn't raise the interest rate like what everyone thought they were going to do. It's like, oh, they're going to raise the rates another quarter of a point. But yet inflation came down to 4% from over 5%. It's like, okay, this number is a lie. This number is absolutely a lie. Because you go to the grocery store, Stacy and David, and it's like, is meat actually like 25% less? Because that's what that number would tell us.
Right.
It's like, no, it's not.
No.
Did gas get 25% less? Well, no. How about eggs? Well, no. How about cars? If you went to the car lot, did cars actually come down 20 or 25% over the last month? It's like, no. So therefore, you know that the number is manipulated. And I knew I knew once they said that the inflation rate was going from over 5% to 4%, I knew at that particular moment they weren't going to raise rates because they want to say that they're winning the battle against inflation so they can put a pause on interest rates. They're not winning the battle on inflation, but since 1996 when Clinton changed the way that you can measure inflation and put substitution bias in there. This is on the Boston Commission. It's the commission that was basically designated to lower the official inflation rate, even if it's not real. So governments wouldn't have to put out as much money in cost of living adjustments, right? So this is what they did again this month, because go to the grocery store and say, did we have a 20 to 25% reduction in prices? No, you can't go anywhere. Then how in the world did the inflation numbers come down that much? Because a move from 5% to 4%, that's a 20% move. The prices didn't come down 20%. It's all garbage. It's all fabricated.
And people know that when they're checking out. They know when they're they're paying. When they're at the movie theater and they two people go to a movie and you get a small popcorn and 2 drinks and 2 movie tickets and you're like $50 bucks. It's like, oh, or when you even a drive-through with fast food, you're like, oh man, just 2 people eating one thing. You're like, this used to be date night kind of money, and now it's like
now it's fast food.
So people know it instinctively when they're paying. It's not coming down.
They do know that, and I know I got off on a rabbit trail because you asked me about the 4 kind of, reasons why there is supply of silver, what it's used for, right? 60% is used for manufacturing. The other 40% is for investors or silverware or jewelry, right? So that's not an awful lot left for all of that other stuff. And what we're starting to see now is what we saw in 2011, when the demand for silver is sky high, when the supply is coming down, prices go through the roof. So as you look at historical patterns and imagine, seriously, I know I started with this, but imagine what the price of silver would be if we actually had a robust economy. If we had a president like Trump or Reagan in office that were growing the economy, wages were going up, people were spending, it would be through the roof, but it's already doing amazingly good. Because if you look back over the last 6 months, silver's up over 40% in 6 months. This is with one of the most sluggish economies in over 4 decades. Imagine what it would be if we had a growing economy, which we are going to get there again, which is why we always, as investors, want to be ahead of the curve and do something prior to an event happening rather than reacting and being a day late, right?
And it's interesting, too, in this article, the silver is significantly underpriced. It was saying it's 81 to 1
to gold.
And it can be as close as 30?
Well, historically, it's gotten to 20. So probably at 30, we're going to be 100% back in gold by that point.
I mean, that is just crazy.
That's why silver and not gold. Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, it's hard for an average person to buy an ounce of gold, because it's
like $2,000 some dollars, right, for gold right now?
Yeah, it's
per ounce.
2,000. It's right in that ballpark.
Something like that, and silver is under 30, say $25 or whatever. So in that range, people can buy increments of that, and it's it's. You can buy 2 1-ounce pieces of silver if the price is going to a movie. So it's like not out of the range of what people can do. But that gap between them, it has to close because that's what the value is. It has to get closer. And as that happens, you're set up in a really good position with silver.
Yeah, and then to possibly go into gold next. And that's what I love about working with you all, because it's not just one transaction. We're now a team. So we purchase silver from you, and then now it increases. Now you're like, okay, this would be a great time to move into gold, and you help us to walk into that process with no selling fee of silver to then move into gold, which is unbelievable.
And you guys are so unique in the marketplace to be able to set people up to be able to do that.
We are. I mean, we're big. We're a really, really big silver dealer. The world of dealers. But that's our focus. Our focus is protection, preservation, but with silver, you actually get growth. And I think what we started with, our love for people and that relationship model and eliminating people's fear, or at least not sometimes people's fear. You can't get it to go away completely because it's their own minds that are causing it. Can't change that. But what we can do is help minimize that, right? By the right place at the right time, taking the time to educate and understand why, man, that's what we're called and gifted and anointed to do. And we love that. And, silver right now, best place to preserve, protect, and grow.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
So you can go to flyovergold.com. When you do, it's a landing page, great information there. When you scroll down to the bottom, there's a place you can fill out your information. When you do that, it then puts you in a position for someone from Dr. Kirk's team to give you a free evaluation. They're going to share with you a consultation, walk through where you are, what's the best next thing for you, and then you can make a decision from there. But it doesn't cost you any money whatsoever. It's absolutely free. So you can go to flyovergold.com or call 720-605-3900 to set up your consultation. Thank you so much, Dr. Kirk, for your time. Thank you for having an incredible team to help everyone to get out of the way of what's going on in our economy and to help to protect themselves during this time. We really appreciate it. Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how in 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for your free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
Do your feet ache and throb in pain with every step you take every day of your life? Well, kiss those days goodbye with slippers from MyPillow.com. How about that flimsy, flat little excuse for a pillow that's nothing but 8 hours of disappointment, causing you pain in your neck every single night? You can wake up with nothing but butterflies and rainbows around your head with a MyPillow pillow. Those hardwood floors hurting your old bones? No more with a MyPillow dog bed. Are your towels worn thin, flimsy, more patchy than Joe Biden's memory? There's nothing better than absorbent towels from MyPillow.com. For all of these products and more, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code FLYOVER for up to 66% off.
Hello, Flyover family. Join me every Wednesday for the Prophetic Report at 11:11 Central. You can find it on Rumble. You can find it on the Flyover app. We have such an incredible time of hearing from all of these different prophetic voices like Robin Bullock, Julie Green, Barry Wunsch, Amanda Grace, and Hank Kuhneman. Every week, it's either 5 or 6 different prophets that are speaking, and what's interesting is God is speaking through them, and all of these voices come together like puzzle pieces. It is so exciting to hear what the Lord is saying. We're hearing from medical, we're hearing from military intelligence, we're hearing from the financial world, we're hearing from mainstream media, but the most important is, what is God saying? He has not fallen off the throne. He's not nervous. He's not chewing his nails. He is in control. He has plans to prosper us and not to harm us. What a great time to be alive, and I'm so excited for you to join me every Wednesday at 11:11.
My opinion might be slightly biased, but that is my favorite show on the internet because we look at so many things. There's so many things happening from, medical and military intelligence and global issues and supply chains and finances.
Education.
But like right at the center, where's God? What's he doing? Yep. What's happening with that? And there is hope. just because it's freezing doesn't mean you have to freeze to death. You need to know what's going on and what is God saying is critical. The best way to find that is at theflyoverapp.com, or you can go to any of your iTunes or Google or any of these places and just download the app, Flyover Conservatives. But you can get directly there by theflyoverapp.com. And the cool thing about it, compared to Rumble and other places where sometimes it's hard to find a past show, they're curated based on lists. So you can look at all of the prophetic reports in a list.
Conspiracy conversations.
You can even go and look at the conspiracy
That is such a great show.
conversation if you kind of want to get weirded out or have your mind blown a little bit about one conspiracy theory or another. We talked about giants and different things, all kinds of stuff. But they're curated in a list on there, a little easier to find at theflyoverapp.com.
And it's free. It doesn't cost you any money whatsoever. We also have a community there, so you can get to know people in your own region. You can take notes. It is a great app.
Censorship free as well.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We bless you. We bless you to realize you were born for such a time as this. We bless you to realize your future is brighter than your past.
Yes.
And we bless you to wake up, speak up, and show up.
See you back here tomorrow, guys. Peace out.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.